The key still worked. Rachel Monroe stood outside the small blue house at the end of Cedar Lane and stared at the front door for a long time before trying it. She told herself she was only checking, only confirming. The lock clicked open without resistance. Her father had been gone for 3 weeks. Heart attack. Sudden. Quiet. The kind of passing that leaves no unfinished sentence, only unfinished rooms. Rachel stepped inside. The air smelled like old wood and coffee. Familiar. Almost unchanged. She hadn't lived here in 18 years. Not since the argument, not since the night she packed 2 bags and told her father she would not come back until he admitted the truth. He never did. The house felt smaller now. Or maybe she had grown. She walked slowly through the living room. Same recliner, same bookshelf, same framed photo of her mother on the wall, taken the summer before she got sick. Rachel stopped in front of it. Her mother had died when Rachel was 14. Official cause, complications from pneumonia. Unofficial cause, something no one talked about. Rachel moved toward the hallway. Her father had always kept one door locked, his office. Even as a child, she wasn't allowed inside without permission. He said it was paperwork, insurance forms, business records. But the night before she left at 19, she had tried the handle, locked. And when she asked why, he had said something that never sat right. Some things don't help to revisit. Rachel stood in front of that same door now. It was closed, but not locked. She hesitated only a second before turning the knob. The room was dim, curtains half drawn. Dust catching in thin strips of afternoon light. The desk was neat. Too neat. Her father had not been an orderly man. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The first drawer contained pens, receipts, old envelopes. The second drawer stuck slightly before opening. Inside were folders, medical documents, her mother's name typed clearly across the top. Rachel's chest tightened. She pulled one out. The date was 2 months before her mother died. Diagnosis: severe respiratory infection complicated by environmental exposure. Environmental exposure. Rachel read the phrase twice. She remembered the smell in the house that year. Faint at first, then stronger, like damp walls. She remembered coughing at night. She remembered her mother saying, "It's just allergies." Rachel reached deeper into the drawer. There were inspection reports, moisture damage in basement walls, mold presence detected, recommended remediation, immediate structural repair, status, deferred. Rachel's hands began to tremble slightly. Deferred. She flipped through another report. Estimated cost of repair, $18,000. Her father had owned a small contracting business at the time. Money had been tight. Very tight. Rachel closed her eyes. She remembered overhearing arguments. Her mother insisting they fix the basement. Her father saying they couldn't afford it. She remembered the coughing getting worse. She remembered hospital visits. She remembered being told it was pneumonia. Rachel opened her eyes slowly. On the desk sat a small, sealed envelope, her name written on it. Not in her father's usual rushed handwriting. Careful, deliberate. As if he knew one day she would stand in this exact room. She picked it up, but did not open it. Because if the reports were true, then her mother's death might not have been unavoidable. And the argument that drove Rachel out of this house 18 years ago might not have been about grief. It might have been about guilt. Rachel stared at the envelope in her hand. For years, she had demanded the truth. Now it was waiting for her to unfold it. Rachel did not open the envelope immediately. She sat down in her father's chair instead. It creaked under her weight the same way it used to when he leaned back after dinner, staring at nothing in particular. As if thinking through problems he never voiced out loud. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. Her name was written carefully, not rushed, not angry, prepared. Rachel slid her finger under the seal. Inside was a single folded letter. No greeting, just her father's handwriting. Rachel, if you are reading this, then I did not find the courage to say it while I was alive. She stopped there, her chest tightened. She continued, You were right to question me. I should have answered you 18 years ago. Rachel felt the room narrow. The night she left had replayed in her mind for years. She had been 19, angry, certain. You knew the house was making her sick, she had said. He had stared at her without responding. You chose money over fixing it. His jaw had tightened. It wasn't that simple, he had replied. She had taken his silence as confirmation. And she left. Now she read on. The mold report came in February. Your mother was already coughing by then. I told myself it was temporary, that we would fix it once the next contract came through. Rachel swallowed. When the doctor mentioned environmental exposure, I didn't tell him about the basement. I was afraid they would ask questions I couldn't afford to answer. Her hand trembled slightly. By the time I understood the risk clearly, she was already in the hospital. Rachel's breathing grew shallow. He continued, You think I chose money. The truth is I chose denial. I convinced myself it wasn't that bad, that people live with worse conditions, that she would recover. There it was. Not cruelty, not indifference. Cowardice. Rachel pressed her lips together. When you asked me if I knew the house made her sick, I couldn't say yes. Because saying yes would mean I helped cause it. The words blurred slightly as her eyes filled. I did not ignore her on purpose. I underestimated the damage. And I overestimated time. Rachel lowered the letter for a moment. The office felt smaller now. She remembered her mother's laugh echoing through this hallway. Remembered the way she used to sit at this same desk paying bills. She remembered the coughing. Persistent, heavy. Rachel forced herself to continue reading. You left because you thought I valued money more than her life. I never corrected you because I didn't know how to live with the version of myself that might have been true. There was one final paragraph. The reports are in the drawer because hiding them didn't change anything. If anger is easier for you than forgiveness, I understand. But please know this, I loved her. And I loved you. I was simply too afraid to admit I failed both of you. Rachel lowered the letter slowly. Silence filled the room. The truth was not explosive. It was worse. It was human. Her father had not intended harm. He had postponed action. And sometimes postponement is enough. Rachel stood and walked to the basement door at the end of the hallway. She opened it. The air was dry now. Clean. Recently treated. He had fixed it, at some point, years too late. She walked back upstairs. The reports were real. The diagnosis was real. The delay was real. But so was the letter. So was the admission. Rachel sat at the kitchen table and stared at the space across from her, the seat where her father used to drink his coffee in the mornings. For 18 years she had carried anger like armor. Now that armor felt heavy, not because he was innocent, but because he had known, and lived with it. Rachel folded the letter carefully. There was still one question echoing in her mind. Did her mother know? Rachel didn't find the answer in the office. She found it in the bedroom. Her parents' room had been left mostly untouched, the bed neatly made. The curtains slightly faded from years of sunlight. On her mother's side table sat a small wooden jewelry box Rachel hadn't opened since she was a teenager. She lifted the lid slowly. Inside were the usual things. Earrings, a thin gold chain, a wedding ring her mother had stopped wearing when her fingers began to swell, and beneath the jewelry, folded once, was a piece of paper, Not medical, not official, personal. Rachel recognized the handwriting immediately. Her mother's, March 3rd. The coughing isn't going away. I can feel it settling deeper. I told him again about the basement. He says we'll fix it soon. Rachel felt her throat tighten. She kept reading. I know he's worried about money. I can see it in the way he studies the bills after dinner. I don't think he believes it's as serious as I do. I don't think he wants it to be. Rachel sat on the edge of the bed. Her mother had known. Not everything, but enough. Another entry followed. If something happens to me, I don't want Rachel blaming him. He's scared. That's all. He thinks fixing it later will still count as fixing it. Rachel closed her eyes. The letter in her father's office had carried guilt. This one carried understanding. There was one final line. I hope he forgives himself one day. Rachel pressed the paper against her chest. For 18 years, she had built a story where her father chose money over her mother's life. The truth was more complicated. He chose avoidance over urgency. He chose hope over evidence. He chose to believe time was on their side. And her mother had seen it. She had understood the fear beneath it. Rachel sat there for a long time, absorbing both letters, one filled with confession, the other with compassion. The house was not simply a place where something fatal happened. It was a place where fear, love, pride, and denial had all lived together. Her father had delayed action. Her mother had sensed it. And neither of them had known how quickly consequences would arrive. That night, Rachel stayed in the house. She walked through each room slowly, not as an investigator anymore, but as a daughter. In the morning, she called the contractor listed on the old remediation report. I'd like a full inspection, she said. Not just repair, documentation. When he asked why, she answered simply, for closure. After hanging up, she placed both letters side by side on the kitchen table. Her anger had once been sharp and certain. Now it was softer, not erased, but reshaped. Her father had failed, but he had not been heartless. Her mother had suffered, but she had not died blaming him. Rachel folded both letters carefully and placed them together in a new envelope, not hidden in a drawer, not locked away, preserved. Some truths don't free you because they prove someone innocent. They free you because they prove everyone was human. And for the first time since she was 19, Rachel no longer felt like she had to choose between loving her mother and forgiving her father. She could do both. The house felt different that morning. Not smaller, not haunted, just honest.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos.